Okay, first of all, let me say that the purpose of this video is not to be completely rigorous and explain all the details of how to graph a quadratic equation with two variables. Here we're going to look at the basics of graphing quadratic equations, where we use a formula to find the vertex and then use the fact that the graph has symmetry to get the rest of it. So the first thing I want to do is look at a basic equation, basic quadratic equation with two variables, and it would be y equals x squared. So just to get the basic idea of what this type of graph looks like, if x is 0, then y is going to be 0 squared, which is 0. If x is 1, y is going to be 1 squared, which is 1. If x is negative 1, y is going to be negative 1 squared, which is 1. And so you can start to see if y is 2 or negative 2, positive or negative 2, if x is positive or negative 2, y is going to be 4. If x is positive or negative 3, y is going to be 9. The y's are the squares of all these numbers. So if you were to graph that, x is 0, y is 0, x is 1 or negative 1, y is 1. If x is 2, y is 4, but if x is negative 2, y is also 4. If x is 3, y is 9, or if x is negative 3, y is also 9. So you get these symmetric points, right? Alright, so the graph is what we call a parabola. I'll write that word here. So in general, when you have an equation with two variables where the x variable is squared, the graph is going to be a parabola. A key feature of this parabola is this point here is what we call the vertex. The reason it's special is because it is the peak or the bottom of the top or the bottom of the graph, right? The highest or the lowest point, depending, because parabolas can be flipped over like this and your vertex would be here. But in either case, this is the only point on the parabola that does not have a symmetric point, right? This point has a mirror image, this point has a mirror image, this point has a mirror image, but the vertex does not. But these points are all the same distance from the vertex, right? Each of these points is 1 to the left and right. Each of these points is 2 to the left and the right. Each of these points is 3 to the left and the right. So we're going to keep that in mind here when we go to graph other equations, other quadratic equations. Okay, so really quickly, how do you find the vertex of a quadratic equation? The first thing you would do is write your quadratic equation in this form, very similar to how you'd write it for the quadratic formula. And then you use the fact that the vertex does not have a symmetric point. So if you look at the quadratic formula, and again, this is not a proof or anything like that, it's just to give you some sort of reasoning. If the square root part of this is 0, right, then what happens is all of this goes away and you're just left with negative b over 2a for your x, right? So that by making this part 0, the plus or minus no longer matters, and so the reason you get symmetric points is because of this plus or minus, right? But if this plus or minus doesn't matter, there's no symmetric point, and that's where you have your vertex. So the x-coordinate of your vertex is negative b over 2a from this equation. So let's try to apply that. So here's a quadratic equation. I want to graph it using symmetric points, find the vertex. So the first thing we're going to do is find the x-coordinate of the vertex. So negative b, that's positive 4, over 2a, well that's positive 4, 2 times 2, which is 1. So x is 1, and when you have an equation then to find y, all you do is you plug this 1 in for your x's, right? So that's what we're going to do. So y then would be 2 times 1 squared minus 4 times 1 plus 1, which is 2 minus 4, that's negative 2, plus 1 is negative 1. So our vertex is the coordinate x is 1, y is negative 1. So that's this point here, 1, negative 1. Now we want to go equal distance on each side, so I'd want to plug in 2 for x and 0 for x. So I could plug in either one, and I should get the same y value since they're going to be symmetric points. So I'm going to plug in the 0 to get my y. So plug in 0 for y or x, and I get this. So y is 1. So if x is 0 or 2, I get y to be 1. So that is these 2 points, and I can now graph my parabola. If I wanted more points, I could do that.